Today we're going to take a look at a couple of different things. The Pythagorean theorem, distance formula, and midpoint formula. So before we get into that, I want you to rate yourself on your prior knowledge. What do you know about Pythagorean theorem and finding like a length of a segment, and then the midpoint formula. A little typo here. So if you feel like, oh yeah, I totally remember Pythagorean theorem, I'll do it easily. Give yourself a 3. Midpoint formula, maybe you're like, God, I remember a little bit, but not too much. Give yourself a 2. Hopefully, no matter where you rated yourself, when we get to the end, you'll be at a 3 at both. So first, let's take a look at the Pythagorean theorem. So the Pythagorean theorem is actually one of those things that I bet you your parents can give you what the formula is. They might not remember how to use it, but that's something that sticks with them forever, and we'll get into it. It only works with a special kind of triangle, and that's a right triangle. And if we're given that the legs A and B and the hypotenuse C, then Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So the legs are always the two sides that form the right angle. So here's the right angle with that box. So then this side and this side would be the legs. The hypotenuse is always the side directly across from that right angle. So then that's C. Taking a look at the practice problem, there's the right angle. Directly across from it is the one that we're trying to find. So that's our hypotenuse. So that's C. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We're taking 7, squaring it, plus 24, squaring it, and setting it equal to c squared. You're able to use your calculators. 7 squared, 49. 24 squared is 576. Add those together, we get 625 is equal to c squared. In order to undo the c squared and find out what c is, we square root both sides. Now, typically, when you square root something, you get two answers, a positive and a negative. But because we're talking the length of a side of a triangle, you can't have a negative length of something. So we're only looking at the positive root in this case. And the square root of 625 is 25. So then this side is 25. Lucked out, we got a whole number there. We will get some decimal answers. At some point, we will have to put it in simplest radical form, but right now we could go with decimals. Go ahead and try solving number 2. Pause me and I'll come back and show the work. So hopefully you saw for this one, you were finding the c again. So then it was 8 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared. 64 and 25 gives you 89. When you square root both sides, only the positive root, you're getting, if we round it to the nearest tenth, 9.4. Let's look at finding the distance between 2 points. So to start off with a basic idea, find the distance between 0, 0 and 3, 4. So here's 0, 0. 3, 4 would be 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3, and 4 up, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we want to find this distance right here. Now I intentionally kind of put the little dots there. If you notice, it can almost form a right triangle. because we're talking a vertical distance and a horizontal distance together are perpendicular. Well, we went 3 to the right, so that would have been 3 units, and 4 up. So the side that we're trying to find in this case, again, is our C. So we can do 3 squared plus 4 squared equals C squared. 9 plus 16. When we square root both sides, after we add it, we get 25 there. So the square root of 25 is 5. So then this distance is 5. A 3, 4, 5 is actually a Pythagorean triple, but we can always use Pythagorean theorem to actually solve it. Getting a little tougher, look at where -7, -4 is. Right there. And then 5, -9 is right down there. So we're trying to find the length of this distance. We still have a vertical and a horizontal distance that we know in order to form a right triangle. Well, how many spaces are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then how many from here to here? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Coincidence, we're finding the C again because that's directly across from the right angle. It's not always the case, so you got to be careful when you plug into the formula. But 5 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared. Skipping ahead some steps, you should get C to be 13. Go ahead and practice with number 1 and 2. Just take a couple of minutes for each of them and pause me to check the answers. Okay, when you draw this triangle in, you should be getting C to be 10. You end up having 1, 8, which is about over here. 7, 0 there. So your triangle ends up being over here, and it's a distance of 6 and a distance of 8. For number 2, you round your answer, you should get 5.8. And if you look at where the triangle is, -2, -1 is right there. 3, -4 is right there. So you're trying to find that distance, but we could still form that right triangle. And if we count this distance, there's 3, and that's 5. So you're still finding C in this case. How about midpoint? Do you remember the midpoint formula? It's x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and then y1 plus y2 over 2. So it's an ordered pair. And think about what midpoint does. It cuts something directly in half. It's right in the middle. So you're adding the two things together and dividing by 2 because you're finding the average directly in the middle of those 2 points or 2 scores, if you think about it that way. Go ahead and plot these points. 8, 2 would be right there. And then -2, 6 is right here. We want to find the midpoint, which, just kind of guessing, it looks to be about here. We're not able to guess, but it's somewhere right directly in the middle of those 2 points. So 2 ways to go about it. Midpoint formula, we can add the points together and divide by 2. Now it doesn't matter which one we call our x1 or our x2, as long as they match up correctly. So we're taking negative 2 plus 8 divided by 2, and then we're taking our 6 plus 2 divided by 2. Negative 2 plus 8 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now if we look, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. We are right, it falls directly in the middle. Got to make sure you know the midpoint formula, but here's another way to kind of help you with it. If we plot these points, negative 3, 1, we're getting right there. And then 7, 5, is right there. To find what's directly in the middle of there, think about these x values on a number line. The distance from negative 3 on a number line to 7. So negative 3 to 0 is 3, and then 0 to 7 is 7. So it's a total of 10 units. Well, we're taking the midpoint of those 10 units, so we have to go 5 units over. That means if I start at 7 and go 5 units that way, or if I start at negative 3 and go 5 units that way, I'm going to end up at the same point, which is at 2. Looking at the y values, so on a number line going from 1 up to 5 is a distance of 4. So half of that would be 2. So if I'm going up 2 units from 1 or down 2 units from 5, I'm hitting at 3. So the answer is 2, 3. 2 different ways to take a look at it. Go ahead and solve number 3 and 4. They are going to be directly above each other. So let's see if you're able to handle that. Pause, and then I'll give you the answer. So when you solve this one, you end up doing 3 plus 2 divided by 2, and then negative 4 plus 4 divided by 2. So you're getting 5 halves, 0. And for this one, you are doing 8 plus 8 divided by 2, and 3 plus 9 divided by 2, which gives you 8, 6. One last challenge problem. I'm not going to give you the answer yet, but take a look at this one. It's giving you one endpoint at 1, 2, and then they're giving you the midpoint. So they already are giving you the midpoint. You have to find the other endpoint. So just to kind of use this diagram, this graph, to help you set it up. 1, 2 is right here. 6, 5, which is the midpoint, is right there. We're not finding what's in the middle of that. This already is the midpoint. So it's actually something like this, and we're trying to find this number right there, that point, that x value, that y value. So good luck trying to solve that. We'll go over it pretty soon. Make sure you now rate yourself afterwards. Hopefully we're close.